we're back. This is part 2.
Today in Goldy's Closet, where we're cracking open the mind of a man who's conquered the squared circle and the stage. The one and only Aron Stevens. You may know him as the genius behind characters like Damien Sandow in WWE, or as the flamboyantly unpredictable Aron Stevens in NWA. But this multi-talented performer is so much more than just his ring persona. He's an actor, a creative force, and a man with a wildly unique perspective on life inside and outside of wrestling. From viral catchphrases to curtain calls, from championship gold to Hollywood scripts, Aron brings honesty, insight, and a lot of laughs to this conversation. So pull up a chair, kick off your boots, and get ready for a raw, real, and ridiculously fun ride. This is Goldy's Closet, and Aron Stevens just stepped in.
And we're back. This is part 2. Aron's back. He left us with a cliffhanger. We were not only talking about just people giving advice in the wrestling business, whether they're qualified or not, whether it's intentional or not, whether they are sabotaging or not, but he left us with a bomb that he's getting married on the 31st. So let's talk about that in just a second. Let's finish up what we were saying about backstage. And then I want to segue into some happy stuff. And then I want to talk about some sad stuff too, because it's good to mix it up and find out. I've listened to a lot of your pods and I'm trying to cover things that people were asking last night in a chat.
Oh, wow.
They were, everybody loves you. And just hit some things that maybe other interviewers don't. So, okay, they're not intelligent enough to know that they're sabotaging somebody. They're just...
I don't think so.
Really?
I think it's more born out of ego, though, at least the ones that I've seen. You know, like some of the independents, you know what I mean, really? And this is what I'm talking about, the independent level. So I think it's done more to kind of gratify their own ego. And then there are even people like, and I'm just being honest, right? Like there are people that are older than I am that have been wrestling, and I say as long or longer than me, but like they really haven't ever been outside their town, right? And I'm not trying to knock anybody, you know, do what you do, but like, I mean, and I will say this, California was horrible in terms of, when I was doing the, I did the booking for Championship Wrestling from Hollywood for almost 2 years. And one of the most rewarding things I've done to be able to kind of help talent and like foster some talent along. And, but you know, like this, how do I put this?
Just put it. People love to hear
it.
You
have to be open to new ways of thinking, right? You have to be open to the sense of like, okay, maybe the way I was trained, there could be additions or subtractions made to it in terms of like how to do things, et cetera, right? So I just think that like, if you're going to get advice from somebody, and this goes to any restaurant, and this is probably pertaining to life in general too, right? Just make sure the person giving you advice, number one, has credibility in the field that they're giving you advice about, and number two, you know, is just kind of communicating it to you in a very honest way with really no ulterior motive, other than they want to see you do well.
Usually the people that I've found that gave me the greatest advice weren't soliciting it. It was me calling upon them because I saw, wow, this person is doing something that I want to do, or they're doing it correctly, or they've got success coming to them. It wasn't just some jabroni in the back room that you're like, hey, bro, what do you think about this? And honestly, I'm really careful about advice that I ask because I go back to a story real quickly. My manager was New Kids on the Block manager, and his name was Dick Scott. He managed New Kids on the Block, Tiffany, Mark and Mark, Boys to Men, all, you know, and I learned how to get screwed up the ass from this guy. And I wouldn't trade it for the world because I didn't know about double dipping, triple dipping, quadruple billing, the lawyer, the management, the record label, me. He was billing everybody. I learned so much from the scoundrel. But one lesson that I learned from this guy was really be careful where you seek your advice. And that is, they put me with, my record deal was with Prince. Okay. So always working with a lot of the proteges. We were working with one Minneapolis royalty. We wrote a great song, had it on the tape, Aron. We were ready to go. It was going to be on the soundtrack of something really important. And what do I do? Somebody that I trusted, my manager, I gave the tape to him and said, listen to this hit song. This is good. Fast forward, Dick and one of his houseboys, who he always was naming after some like, this is Apollo, this is Zeus. Well, apparently Zeus wrote a song as well that was going to go on that soundtrack. So what happened to my tape? With the garbage is what had happened, because I put my trust, just like we're talking about advice, like be very, very careful. Dick wanted his houseboy, his lover, to get on that slot. He didn't care about me when it came to butt bashing. That was the guy, you know. I was like, I was the redheaded stepchild. Be very, very careful when you are asking for advice at work, in wrestling, in entertainment, in whatever you're doing. You just have to really. Usually, the person that isn't standing there high on the hill offering it is the person that I would suggest going to. So you saw a lot of people giving bad advice. What even spurred this whole conversation? What did you see?
Well, okay, so I just giving advice and trying to make someone a better pro wrestler when having no idea what the essence of pro wrestling really is. When, you know, I think athletically,
Because they're young? Because they were young or just dumb?
Both, probably.
Okay. But you said you said there's people older than you that were giving shit advice.
Yeah, because, okay, like the wrestling business, it's predicated upon one thing: people wanting to see stars. People wanting to see people. Okay, and you could argue, no, people want to see good action and this and that. Well, in order to see action, you need the talent to do it. And, you know, when we go to the circus, do we know any of the acrobats' names? No, they get lost in the shuffle, and we see these like amazing, incredible moves that like are just, they seem to defy athleticism, right? And kind of bring it up to this next phase, like defy gravity and just, well, wrestling's kind of getting like that, to where, I mean, talented women and men, extremely talented women and men, how presented as stars because they don't know how to present themselves as stars, because the people in charge, and this isn't everybody, like if you look at NWA, I think you can see we're doing something extremely different in terms of how we take talent and say, okay, we want to do something with you. Here's how we're going to cultivate you, right? And it's like, it's that very much that old school, the wheel is still round, dare I say, kind of mentality. And it's not that hard. And I think a lot of people want to complicate things. And the complication, I think, comes because, number one, these people that are giving advice want to complicate things because they themselves have never truly mastered the basics and the simplicity of how to truly do this at the highest level. And doing this at the highest level is not doing it on TV. I don't care if it's on national TV. I don't care if it's an independent, like whatever it is. Doing this at the highest level is when your music hits, that crowd is reacting before they even see you. Doing this at the highest level is if I walk out there and I'm on live television and I have another segment to go, because yes, that's happened before, to where something's happened in the back, and you know, we now have another 6 minutes of TV plus another 3 minutes to work through the break when you don't panic, you know, and the performance doesn't suffer for it, right? Like the difference, and I say this to everybody, right? Like, and I think you can apply this to any field. So I'm actually interested in your thoughts. The difference between pros and everybody else, whether you're playing chess, whether you're wrestling, music, I'd be interested to see if you agree with this, but is that pros are brilliant, not good, but brilliant at the basics. That is the difference. And whether people want to hear it or they don't want to hear it, why are we having to bring in stars that were stars on TV before, and they're getting more of a reaction than some of these younger talent who have all the physical capabilities in the world, who look great. And, you know, I think we need to see more of it. Like, I think what's really cool, and I don't watch AEW all the time, but like when we have Jericho, he has those group of guys that he's like teaching, you know what I mean? And that are learning from him. That's the way you do it. Like, that is what the industry is. So that's so cool to see that going on there. You know what I mean? And I just wish it was going on more across the board. And I think in NWA, that's what uniformly all of us are like, yeah, this is the style of wrestling we believe in. This is the way we think it should be presented. And there is an audience for it. So
what do you think the basics are?
It's about the people outside the ring, not the people in the ring. Number one, you have to make your performance physically. Like, you have to learn how to protect your opponent and yourself in that order. Number two, you have to make everything you do look believable. Every strike, every kick, every headbutt, every step, every movement, like everything you do from the time you come through the curtain until the time you take your boots, it has to be completely flawless. And if something happens, right, because look, accidents happen, hiccups happen, right? Sometimes something gets messed up. Sometimes you have to be good enough to where you keep going to where 10 seconds after that, people forget it, right? That's what a pro is, in my opinion.
No, that's really solid. I heard you on another podcast talking about, the fans and what's over with the fans. And I do see some of the other products that are out there more just consumed with honestly with their own ego. Like it really is. A show that I was doing in Los Angeles, there was a producer who she was just fantastic because her mantra was always, let's do she beat the shit into me without even me knowing it because she was so perfect at it. She walked the walk, and it was, we do what's good for the show. We do what's good for the show. And that is, like you were saying on another interview that I heard, you guys really like that? Oh, okay. And then you go with it. You don't just say, I'm not doing that. It's blatantly working, but I don't like it. So I'm not going to do it because my ego is too big for this. If people are, your job as a wrestler or a musician or an actor, you believe what you want, but because of my background and being raised Christian or whatnot, I was, the base of Christianity is supposed to be, not in the South, but geez, is supposed to be service, not non-judgmental, but to be like, they'll say, and this could be any religion, you'll know you're a fill in the blank by your love. You're supposed to know by your love and not by your own ego. And I love the Buddhist religion because of that, because it's just taking the ego out and doing what's right for the show. And whether that's a finish or a storyline or a character angle or a song that we sing some nights that people request, it doesn't matter. If that is going to bring, you're a servant. That's my point that I was going to make. You're a servant. And if that makes somebody happy and that takes them out of reality for 5, 10, an hour, 2 hours. That's why I still love the movies, Aron, because even though I've been in them, it's still magic to me. And I can I can unplug and be lost in it. I don't want to hear that CGI, or I don't want to hear it. I just want to be, that's what we do in wrestling. That's what we do in entertainment, is to serve. And you should do what's right for the show and listen to what people like, whether you like it or not.
Agreed.
Yep. What has been something that you've thought to yourself, but you've went with it anyway? Like,
wrestling the Invisible Man, like the Mizdow stuff. Like I wasn't told to do any of that. I was just bored on Raw one day, and I said, all right, well, if I'm supposed to be a stunt double or an understudy, I'm going to just start acting like him. And I started wrestling the Invisible Man. And that was one of those things where it was, on paper, it is so ridiculous. And that's the thing, to where, like, if you went to a room full of wrestling writers, which I also think in WWE, when I was there are way too many writers, way too many. I mean, you have to have, your captain of the ship, and then he has his lieutenants, or she has her lieutenants. And it ain't that hard, and with writers who are just like, oh, you should do this. And some of them were just some of them were amazing, like amazing writers, like Tony Gannon, Steve Oppenheim, Mike Notarelli, those guys, Matt McCarthy, just incredible people to work with. Like, I was so fortunate to work with some amazing writers, but there are also some that are just like, they look at you and you're like, whoa, excuse me. Like, you just graduated college and like, you're coming at me like that. And then, one thing I'll say about Vince, we had the, kind of the relationship we had, but whenever I got a script that I didn't want to say, I would let him know, and it's the only time I would knock on his door. And boss, look, I got 3 minutes to say this. This is really not the way Sandow would say it. Can I just do it? And he would absolutely. So I hit my time. I drive the message home, and he didn't do that with everybody. So
because you respected his time, he probably said this is going to take 3 minutes or this is going to take 2 minutes, and not only.
Like 3 minutes on TV, right? Like it was scheduled for me to talk for 3 minutes. So I was like, look, this'll, like, I can do it in this time. Can I please say it my own way? And he did. So,
and on top of that, I'm sure when you delivered and you knocked on the door, you didn't keep him forever. I'm sure you respected.
No, in and out, in and out.
Yeah, when you do that, my biggest fear has always been doing talk show stuff and having that, like, the music roll or the having the guy look at his watch, like when you just read the room. You mentioned Kiss, that you were talking about Kiss, and I think of Kiss, and I think of some of the great bands that are out there. And what people probably don't realize, as in wrestling, is there's like an unsaid script that's going on where why did they pick a ballad at that time of the show to play? And that's what we're going to do. We're going to pick a ballad at this time of the show because, well, actually bands like that do pick ballads and slower songs because people go take piss breaks and they go get a drink and they go to the merch table at that time. So interesting. Like, you don't realize that, but psychology exists even in the bigger bands. So, you know, instead of going to the merch table right now, we are going to plug the January 31st in Knoxville pay-per-view, and then also February 11th in Tampa, another pay-per-view. Clearly, everybody listening, this is a huge audience on Russo's brand. You guys can hit one of those or both. I want you to go and support and check out NWA. You're always bitching and complaining about how you don't like how the business is and you hate all the product that's out there. NWA is clearly doing something different. Aron himself is, you know, compared this to ECW in the early days when they were just doing their thing and disrupting a little bit. They're taking it classic, old style wrestling with a new twist. But here we are with something a little bit more on a somber note, because I'd love to get your take on it in a real way. And I am not afraid of you. And sometimes when people interview, they're like afraid of things. I'm not, because you can just hang up on me, and it wouldn't be the first time. But but you know, when you've been said in different articles, you know, why did you leave wrestling, Aron? Why? What happened? And you know, you had some honest answers with you just the death of Chris Kanyon and Daphne. And you know, Daphne was talked about, like, everybody just jumped on board and was just boo hoo hoo, and everybody and people do that, and I appreciate them with the memes and all the stuff. But like, I always say, like, where is everybody for the people who are living? And if you were there for the people that are living more, whether it be artists, musicians, bands, wrestlers, sports athletes, if you were there for the people more in the present, a lot of times the mental health would be in a better place, and suicides and things like that wouldn't happen. And I remember a bunch of people were messaging me frantically on Discord saying, "Goldy, are you watching Daphne's posts?" And I didn't follow her that closely. We were colleagues, but I looked at it and I was like, shit. I was like, this. I was like, this is not somebody playing. Like, this girl is in. And I reached out to a bunch of people in the business and said, "Will you frickin' call this girl?" And they did. And the phone was, you know, and I remember seeing people saying, I'm calling you. And she just didn't answer. And it hurt me to see somebody in that much pain. Why? You saw Chris Kanyon. Like, what really made you just say, I can't do this? You said I started to become somebody that I didn't want to be. Like, who was that? Because I know personally who I was becoming. Who were you becoming?
So just to put in perspective too, like, when Kanyon had passed, that was before I went back to the WWE my second time. And Daphne, that was a few years. I think it was like maybe a year and a half ago, right?
Yeah, it's recent.
Shannon. So that was after I'd already come back to NWA. So it wasn't like, you know, just to clarify, like, it wasn't those two people specifically, although they speak to a bigger problem, because, you know, Daphne had actually managed me in OVW.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And, you know, Chris and we had become friendly, and Chris had always taken care of me, like dark matches when I was trying out for WWE. Chris was always just such a wonderful, welcoming person. Now, again, like when we look at both of those cases, they speak to obviously a broader issue, and that is like, we could say, all right, it's very easy because Daphne and Canyon, right? It's easy to blame the wrestling business. Very easy, right? Now, look, in entertainment, none of us truly get out what we put in, even if you look at like the top stars, right? Like there's always that wanting more, right? Which is, and again, I'm not going to get too spiritual here, but there's all that temporal attachment, like, you know, and you said how beautiful Buddhism is, right? You have that detachment from things, that detachment from, or I was actually listening to Bishop Barron this morning, and he was kind of giving a reason for, you know, why we fast and why we should kind of just not get too attached, right? It's not a matter of being a monk and being a hermit.
Yeah.
Although he did use the example of St. Ignatius, who after converting did that for about 9 months, but I don't recommend that. And by the way, the Jesuits, my spiritual director is a Jesuit, and he's wonderful. And I, if you're into Roman Catholicism, a lot of the Jesuit philosophies, I'm just going to plug that there. But back to the point, when I think at times, right, when we live in the world of extremes,
Which is so everything these days is just, dude, it's not like when you and I were growing up. It's just not the same. And we're not old. It's just, things have changed in the last 10, 15 years so drastically.
Exactly.
And there's some good things, but like some of it's just too much.
Yeah. And I think now we're starting to see kind of the tail end of where even younger people are being like, okay, this is a bit much. Because like we, as human beings, it's not healthy for us to be in this constant state. And I think it's because we're fed things by, and again, like social media, right? Like, I'm not going to say social media is good or bad, is right or wrong. Social media is. It's just like electricity, right? Yep. And you said the movie The Secret, right? One of the quotes from that movie is, you can cook a man's dinner with electricity, and you can also cook the man. Yeah. So it's the same thing, right? Where we choose to kind of handle these things we have, right?
And he died. The guy that said that, Bob Proctor just died.
Yeah. Lived a hell of a life, though. Long life, and you know, it was good.
He was, and you know what? Side note, I got to interview him right before he died.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
all of those guys. That is such.
That's
guys,
cool.
Side note, please go watch The Secret or read that book. You have to be in the right frame of mind for it, but there's so many things that it touches on that teaches you some really good stuff. And yeah, we don't all have spiritual advisors like Aron, but that's amazing. Fasting. I do 40 days every year, twice a year. I don't know how long you fast for, but what do you do?
But no, like the thing is, right? Like when we said fasting, right? I'm using that as an example of becoming detached from.
Yes, agreed. Go back, circle back.
Worldly things, right? Now in wrestling, and we'll take it back to the case of Daphne and Chris Canyon.
Yep.
There are times that we all, and myself included, you know, until recently, like where our entire identity kind of revolves around who people perceive us on TV, right? Daphne was the screen queen. Chris, you know, the Alliance MVP, who better, you know, that whole thing. And it's sometimes it's what makes us really good performers. But at the same time, like when you kind of calm down, and I always equated it to, like when I'm done, right, and I'm unlacing my boots and my adrenaline shutting down, and I almost go through this process, right, or even like if I'm managing or perform, like whatever. And I try to mentally to myself go through this process of, okay, this is my real name. I'm not, you know, it's just kind of like coming back to reality thing. And what I do, I use my time on camera as a complete mental vacation. So I've kind of like, I've tried to harness my insanity to where like when I'm performing, it's not me. You know, it's just, I blur the margins, right, of who I am personality wise, which allows me a degree of freedom, right? When people say like it's your personality with the volume turned up, this is just my other way of saying it, right? But then we have to have this like coming back to reality now mentally, right? Like who knows, right? I'm not a doctor, not a psychologist, but there is definitely a biological reaction to having 10, 15,000 people chant your name every night. Okay. To, in my case, they hit the Hallelujah chorus by Handel and I come walking out. I mean, that's going to mess with you a little bit. Okay. I mean, like the fact that I know if I say one thing, I can get an entire, audience of people chanting at, I mean, that you talk about a power trip, that's pretty powerful. And, as wrestlers in particular, we all get to kind of experience that. And, combined with any kind of childhood trauma, like leading up to that point of getting in wrestling, and then you're at this heightened state of it, and everything is just so good, and the dopamine's going, and then you kind of crash. Right now, remove that when you're away from the business. You don't see the people that were like your family that you saw every single day, that you travel with. You went through divorces, marriages, birth. I mean, being stranded on the side of a highway, getting into an argument with the cook at Waffle House at 4 a.m. because he didn't want to make egg whites and he charged you for them. Like there's just so many different things, right? Like you have these, yeah, but like, and you have these shared experiences, right? And yes. A friend of mine, April Hunter, actually told me this saying, and what the saying actually means. Rather, the saying "blood is thicker than water." It's not what you think. It doesn't mean, oh, your family's more important than everyone else. Although, again, I love my family, but like the people that you have shared experiences with. When in the Vikings, when they would shed blood in battle, the bonds in battle were stronger than any other bonds. So that's where the saying "blood's thicker than water." And again, in music, right? You said when you're on the road, you know what someone's going to order, and this. It happens, right? And that's that can be a really good thing. And when that's taken away, right? And it's like everything goes down and you're left with yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have people cheering. And
you know what? Let me make a point. Mm-hmm. I was working on a film years ago, and this makeup artist I started to have quite often. She was a brilliant woman, beautiful, and her name was Mary. And she talked about how she wasn't doing massive drugs anymore. And then I kind of would ask her, like, she was talking about she did all the supermodels. That was her realm. Mary was like the Kate Moss and the Cindy Crawford and Claudia Schiffer and like all those, like that was their main woman. And she would talk about not necessarily those women, but a lot of these supermodels, like the highest of high, and how they were so addicted to, heroin and cocaine. And I just said, Mary, like they have everything going for them. They have everything that you could ever have. Like, why would somebody like that want to be hooked on drugs? And she said, Goldy, that's exactly why. Like, they are as high as they could ever be in life, and the only place that they have to go now is down. And like, they have to numb out that constant feeling of what you're talking about, where you're away from your family, your road family, you're away from it's very, very, and you will never understand, and some of you listening and watching can't understand unless you're in that situation. Some of you have like work things that you can kind of relate this to, but I'm talking about people that are at the highest of the high, and the Rocks, the Dwayne Johnsons of the world. Like, it's just very, very odd when you get fired or something happens where you're not around that anymore. It's a shock to your system, more of a withdrawal than any like physical drug could be, I think.
No, agreed. And sometimes you just get the perfect storm for tragedy, and whatever mental and emotional demons that both Daphne and Chris had.
And Joni.
Yes.
Did you know her?
Yes. And just it eventually wears on you. And I think, to your point, Goldy, like with what you said, that is it, right? Like when there's nowhere else to go. Yeah. Right. And that can be at the highest level to the models doing heroin and blow, or it could be at the lowest level to when you're in your house and you don't have the fans, and you don't have, and you're dealing with all this trauma, right? Like it could be from your childhood, it could be wherever, right? Sometimes it's just too heavy, right? And then when you have nowhere else to go from that state of depression, and there is seemingly nowhere. I would think, unfortunately, that's when you kind of decide to make that decision. Now, here's the anecdote. You take someone like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, his giving to people, his wanting to constantly create, right? Trying to be, right? Like, that's someone who in that position has, in my opinion, taken it to just the extreme, right? Now I'm gonna get Catholic here, so forgive me.
I was just gonna say, please take it spiritual
like,
for a second.
If we look at Mother Teresa of Calcutta,
yeah,
right? If we look at Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who was born in these, not born, but like chose to live in abject poverty, and who her diary, and then they found, that's why they made her a saint so quick, because it wasn't that, oh, she was this holy woman, even though she was, and she did all this good, but she didn't know if God could hear her, yet she remained faithful. And I'm talking, this is 30 years, so she remained faithful like that because she was in service to others. We look at John Paul II, how, growing up in war, God, if anyone had a right to smoke a joint, it would have been John Paul II. We're being honest, right? Like, yeah. No, the man chose to become a priest. He chose to educate himself. And again, this isn't I'm not trying to proselytize for Catholicism, because these examples can be found. There are people everywhere, who have taken the most dire circumstances and turn them into something amazing. Now, here's the thing. Both Mother Teresa and John Paul II, they had people that were there for them, helping John Paul become a priest, helping Mother Teresa build her first hospital, right? Mm-hmm. Now, in the case, and again, we're just talking about these two specifically, but we're speaking to the broader problem here, where, sometimes you try to reach out to people. Sometimes people aren't there. Sometimes people are there, and it's a good thing. And sometimes you don't want to be. Are we on? Oh, am I on? Sorry.
Nope, you cut off at sometimes you reach out, sometimes people are there, sometimes people aren't there, sometimes people don't want to be there is where you cut off?
Yes, and when they reach out, look, if any of my friends or even people I didn't know were to call me, or I didn't know that well, excuse me, otherwise I wouldn't have my number. Hey, I'm really thinking about, calling it quits here. No, of course I do everything in my power. We have resources. Exactly. There's a suicide prevent, but at the same time, I think it's how we as people, we really need to be okay with who we are and realize that we are so much more. Look, we're still talking about Daphne. We're still talking about Chris. And I'm sure if they knew the impact that what they did would have on everybody, they wouldn't have. But you know what? In that moment, they were so in pain and so torn and so levels that we don't even know, I think. And I say this because, hey, we're all still here,
Yep.
And that's another thing, right? We all get down, we all get depressed, right? We all, is this, why should I even go on? But the thing is, you still fight. You still, if you have to take it one day at a time, fine. 1 minute at a time, fine. One breath at a time. It's okay. But just understand that all of us, we affect people more than we all realize in general.
Everybody does.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a Patreon or not. I do. And
I don't. No.
You probably should. I've met so many beautiful people through the pandemic, and we've got a lot of people even listening to this that they're disabled, or they've got some sort of physical or mental impairment. And I find that out later on. It's not something they advertise. And I know some of them feel as though they know how they feel. And I'm thinking, I can't even believe what a difference in my life you've made for me. You might think that you're some disabled guy that lives in the UK and, you give your $3 or your $5 every month to this thing. And I'm thinking, I know all about you, and I know how important you are to the world. And I know the kindness that, those people that show up on your threads and posts, and they've got, they're just completely, there's no ulterior motive there. They're just kind people. They've got something positive to say. And I'm thinking, and you don't know what their circumstances are. You don't know what their surroundings are, their financial background. It doesn't matter. They're just really pure, great people. And it's just, it's important to recognize that, like, that we're all so important, and you don't know what role you play in keeping somebody else alive or their light lit. And speaking of that, you know, when people do get down and we hear about these tragic stories like we're talking about, it's so important that you do have something in your life. And I don't care if you're a Catholic or a Buddhist or you're in Hindu, whatever, like, find whatever voice that's out there of a higher power, because that's what they're there for, is to rely on and to remind you how awesome that you are, and that there is an unconditional love. Like, you know, there's a lot of people in the South, Aron, and they're just holy rollers, and they're just regurgitating a bunch of vomit of this, that, and the next thing. But I'm like, where in the midst of all of that, where is the center of, like, everything that all of us believe in should be based on love? And when you have a lot of love, then you have a lot of self-love. A lot of things like suicide attempts and suicide, they don't happen, because no matter how low I've ever gotten, I know, like, I've got that person, that thing, whatever you want to call it, has my back. And it seems like,
and that's a gift.
They show it is a gift, but that gift is available to everybody. You just have to be kind of like you were when you said the phone just rang, or the this just this. It's like, because they're looking out for you.
And I, if I could add to that too,
please.
Like, you know, I'm not going to sit here, because again, I am a Roman Catholic, but I have been exposed to every kind of spiritual system you could think of. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, I've always kind of had this, you know, desire to know. And we can all, and to have the belief in a higher power, it is 90% of the battle. To have that true belief, right? That there's, and look, I'm not talking about a white man with a white beard sitting up in the clouds pointing, and, you know, no, I mean, that was obviously like a medieval rendition of what they thought, you know, the Trinitarian God, or God the Father, like whatever. But no, I'm just talking about a belief in that which we cannot see, which science has proven, by the way, that there's things we cannot see that are there. Another topic. But even in that, right, if you have that belief, like, you are still going to be subject to all of the emotions that everyone faces, right? And there will be times. I mean, I have, you know, some people call it the dark night of the soul, which you know, the dark night of the soul is a real thing when you are just, you feel abandoned, you feel just completely like in that void. And it's a funny thing. You have to say, like, do I really believe? Like, what is the point to it all, right? But then there's this deep, even if you don't want to admit it, because I'm a brat. So, like, when in my conversations with God, at times I have been guilty of being a brat, and I admit that. But you just know that there is that something to when you feel you're at your point. At least with me, anyways. Like, I've always had that hand kind of sweep me back in, and that is a blessing, because, you know, again, people, we're all different, right? And we all have our own kind of internal things going on psychologically and physically, biologically, whatever. But if you are going through a period like that where you want to have faith, right? And you call it spiritual aridity, to where aridity alluding to like the arid desert, right? Like, there's this desert of spirit, like you can't seem to find God, and I'm just going to call it God, right? You can't seem to find God anywhere. Even in then, it is the midst of that aridity. It is the midst of that loneliness, that spiritual loneliness, when you don't feel God, right? Well, you know what? I don't feel the air because the wind's not blowing, but I know it's there, right? And I think that's the best kind of picture I can paint, or analogy I can make. But if you're struggling with these ideas, right? If you're struggling with, again, suicide, depression, look, in the world we live in today, it's a real thing, right? It's just this heightened state of society. And it's going to have an effect on all of us. But just to me, and this is just my own personal shit, when all else fails, and this is what I've learned recently, and I say recently in the last couple of years, when I don't want to talk to people, I don't think there's any hope for me. I don't think my career's going anywhere. I don't think, whatever. I will go out of my way to do something nice, hold a door for someone, let someone go in traffic, smile if you have to make a conversation at the store with someone, and just try to make their day. And those little things, if you, and if you don't have anybody to reach out to, because who knows, there's probably people out there that don't have that at the moment. Do something nice for someone. Trust me, things get better. If you do that, because it's contrary to everything that depression and all the amount of shit we have, that life piles on us. If you go out and you do that, it is contrary to what people think. Like, oh, won't do that, and we have to. No, do that, because that is not being weak, and it's actually being quite strong. So.
That's
it's not,
the number one piece of advice I give people is the exact same thing. Go out and just make it a point every day to do one or two kind things for somebody out of being selfish, because you will feel so much better. It's a win-win. You help somebody else. Look at somebody and find something good to say about them that is sincere and watch the magic.
Yeah. Awesome.
I sent you respect your time. We'll wrap it up and segue into this. I sent you a video and I said, did you know that your friend May Valentine was the star of this video? And you're like, great cause, whatever. And you probably don't, just skimmed through it real quick, saw her amazing acting. But the first verse is, it may think that we are through, but it says, one set of footprints, but I was carrying you. And the song is for suicide prevention, but it's based on that picture and that poster that a lot of people had growing up called Footprints in the Sand.
Yep.
And it was just like you said, the air is out there. We don't necessarily feel it at a particular time, but we are breathing it and it's working. Or, electricity is out there. We don't necessarily understand how it works, but we enjoy the benefits of it. And May Valentine was just this really amazing chick that I met through James Storm, and he thought I was looking for somebody with like tattoos and all of this stuff, and he had no idea that she was going to be playing a Muslim in this video. Very high rate of suicide in the Muslim community in America, just for obvious reasons. She knocked it out of the park. She's an amazing actress. She's an amazing writer. I'm sure you know that she's like a best-selling author.
Oh, it's extremely intelligent and extremely kind and not like one of those, just, we were talking before, like one of those just good people,
So I mean, is that what you saw in her to marry her on the 31st, or how did this all?
I will say this, just. There's the real me and the business side of me. And you know what? I think on the 31st, a wedding will happen. We're scheduled to do it. We're scheduled to walk the aisle. But the tux is picked out. May said she's taking care of the flowers. And I think if you want to see it, it's going to be on YouTube. It's a live power.
Oh.
First ever NWA. We're going to do NWA Power, which is our weekly show, but we're going live. It's going to be on YouTube on the 31st of January. Coming from Knoxville. And if you're in Knoxville or in the Knoxville area, go to NWA Tix. That's NWATIX.com and go check it out. You can be a part of my wedding ceremony. I've never been married before.
What do you mean you can be a part of the wedding ceremony?
You can be in attendance. You can be a witness. I mean, I'm not going to give you any cake or anything, but you can be there. You can take pictures and say you're there. And I'll have the tuxedo, and May will have the dress, and the organs are playing, and the birds are singing, and it's going to be a whole thing. And
incredible. How incredible. I cannot wait for this.
Oh, yeah. Going to be one to remember.
Let's close it out with what you are looking forward to and expecting at your time at NWA. Like, what's on the horizon for you? You've given such great advice and such insight during both of these pods. I can't thank you enough. And this has been a very different podcast than I'm sure a lot of them that you're used to. So I appreciate you going down the rabbit hole with me. But what's on the horizon for you with NWA?
So I'll say this. The NWA, in terms of our identity, we have really kind of come into our own, especially the last half of 2022. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent. And there is there's a platform now for that talent, I think, to be presented in the best light possible. And with right now, I got the managing thing going on, which I love. It's a whole new kind of dimension for me because my thing is I get bored real quick. So this has been good. I'm, of course, managing Blunt Force Trauma, the most devastating tag team in professional wrestling today. And it's, to me, right, I don't want to put any expectations because one of the things I have been very guilty of, like, okay, I win Money in the Bank and you're going to be the next world champion. Great. Awesome. Yeah, that didn't happen. But if I don't have expectations, I am allowed to live in the moment and kind of just and this is why my brain is completely, it's wired bass backwards, but it's my survival mechanism. So like, I'm not going to complain, they're not writing for us, they're not doing it. No. I mean, number one, NWA, it completely is there for the talent, unlike any other organization I've ever been to. But number two, like, if I'm just in the moment, the performance is going to be better. And then I'll worry about whatever we're doing next time. Like, all I have to do is give the fans everything I have. So that is what I'm looking forward to. And I will say, like, with me, the reason that I still do this is because I genuinely do love it. And I had to come to terms with that. That was a big thing that, and I don't want to go into another rabbit hole, but my friend Josephus, the question mark, rest in peace, he taught me that. Like, he taught me more than I ever taught him. I guarantee you that. And so it's appreciating where I'm at, and it's just being in the moment and just kind of rocking the place, one town at a time.
I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for way more time than we bargained for. You're a brilliant guy, and like I said in the beginning of the show, just cool as shit and on top of the game. Thank you.
Back at you. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. This is actually last week's would have been 202. This week is Goldie's Closet episode 203 with our guest Aron, who goes by many names. I don't even want to attempt to list that laundry of names.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
But we thank you always, and I remind you to stay safe out there, to stay golden, and just have a beautiful rest of your week. And thank you everybody for chiming in and giving us your time and attention. We clap at the end, Aron. Let me show those paws, and we'll see everybody attending that wedding. Stay golden. What's up, everyone? It's Goldie, Impact Wrestling, TLC's Cheapskates. Ted Nugent's running wild from him somewhere in the woods. And maybe you've seen our band, Goldy Locks Band. We're out there, we're on tour, but now we're connecting on Cameo. So I want to tell you that I am here to be your humble servant. And that's whatever you need said for you, for a friend, a shout out, a golden shout out, you name it, here and on it. Now, just reminding you, keep it classy, keep it cool, and keep it above the belt. But I want to offer you something a little bit different. Just remember, if I'm not on the road and I've got access to these next beauties, we can always have a microphone now. Da-da-da-dum. I want to make this the most amazing experience for you ever, because you deserve it, your friends deserve it, your loved ones deserve it. And just remember, I can sing you a few lines of a song. It can be from anywhere, like it can be from Somewhere Over the Rainbow, or it could be near, far, wherever you are. It could even be on a highway to hell. It can even be from there. Oh, and keep in mind, not all requests are the same. Maybe your motivation comes with a harder edge. Maybe you need a more jagged little pill. There's nothing that I love more than playing the heel. So if you need your message delivered with more, what's the word I'm looking for? Intention? Please specify. Can't wait to connect with you on Cameo. Thanks so much for being here. Stay golden.